And we're live. Greetings, friends. Welcome. Welcome to Weirdling Wednesdays, a new series where we explore the weird, the wondrous, the mysterious, and the forgotten. It's basically Sinister Sundays, except on a Wednesday. I love The Witcher. I love Geralt, but regrettably, those that playthrough wasn't pulling in the views, so we're going to try something different. Eagles is here. Eagles says hi. Eagles Pro, greetings. And Miko is also here. Miko says, hello, Super Antonio and Sadie. Hello, mods. Howdy, folks. Sadie is here. She is fast asleep. What's that about? 7 viewers in the chat. Welcome, friends. Appreciate you being here. Tonight, we are going to be talking about the Voynich Manuscript, which is a 600-year-old manuscript written in a language that has yet to be discovered or interpreted, about plants that do not exist and an astrological system that references stars that are currently unknown. What's that about? I've been fascinated with this mystery for a while now. They've been trying to figure it out, interpret it. Momo says, hello, Antonio. Hello, chat. Greetings, Momo. Welcome, friend. I actually thought about, they sell facsimiles online. You can buy one from Amazon. I actually thought about purchasing one just because I'm so fascinated by it. Fortunately for you and me, Yale University has a copy, and they have scanned it and digitized it. And here it is. Let's investigate. The Voynich Manuscript is an illustrated codex, handwritten in an unknown script, referred to as Voynicese. The vellum upon which it is written has been carbon dated to the early 15th century. Stylistic analysis has indicated the manuscript may have been composed in Italy during the Italian Renaissance. While origins, authorship, and purpose of the manuscript are still debated, hypotheses range from a script from a natural language or a constructed language, an unread code, cipher, or other form of cryptography, or perhaps a hoax, a reference work, i.e. a folkloric index or compendium, or work of fiction like science fantasy or mythopoeia, metafiction or speculative fiction, currently lacking the translations and context needed to both properly entertain or eliminate any of these possibilities. It's a mystery. What's that about? The manuscript consists of around 240 pages, but there's evidence that pages are missing, perhaps the Rosetta Stone or the translation pages. The text is written from left to right, and some pages are foldable sheets of varying sizes. Most of the pages have fantastical illustrations and diagrams, some crudely colored, with sections of the manuscript showing people, fictitious plants, astrological symbols. The manuscript is named after Wilfred Voynich, a Polish book dealer who purchased it in 1912. Since 1969, it has been held in Yale University's Beinecke Rare Book and Manuscript Library. In 2020, Yale University published the manuscript online in its entirety in their digital library, and here it is for your perusal. We don't know what these are illustrations of. I mean, they're obviously plants, but they're not any plants that we can identify. Is this a work of a madman, perhaps a schizophrenic? But it's so elaborate, it's so intricate, it's so detailed. That's what I love about it. Is it from an alternate timeline? Is it Was he a time traveler? Did he visit another galaxy? I'm just speculating, of course. I'm sure there's a rational explanation. Obviously, schizophrenia immediately comes to mind. But it's a wonderful mystery. Going on with Wikipedia, the Voynich manuscript has been studied by both professional and amateur cryptographers, including American and British codebreakers from both World War I and World War II. Codebreakers Prescott Currier, William Friedman, Elizabeth Friedman, and John Titman were unsuccessful. And here's Sadie saying hello. Say hi to Momo, Sadie. 10 viewers in the chat, welcome. Welcome to Weirdling Wednesdays. On Wednesdays, we Weirdling, where we explore the weird, the unknown, the mysterious. And tonight we're featuring the Voynich manuscript. Here it is. It's in its entirety, courtesy of Yale University. I mean, those are obviously stars, but where? What? How? Or the manuscript has never been demonstrably deciphered, and none of the proposed hypotheses have been independently verified. The mystery of its meaning and origin has excited speculation and provoked study. I want them to run this through AI. If anyone can figure it out, AI can figure it out. Description: the codicology. The codicology, or physical characteristics of the manuscript, has been studied by researchers. The manuscript measures 23.5 by 16.2 by 5 centimeters, 9.3 by 6 by 4 inches by 2 inches, with hundreds of vellum pages collected into 18 quires. A quire is a measure of paper quantity, similar to a ream. The total number of pages is around 240, but the exact number depends on how the manuscript's unusual foldouts are counted. Glynis Coleman is here. Everyone say hi to Glynis. Greetings, Glynis. Welcome. The quires have been numbered from 1 to 20 in various locations using a style of numerals consistent with those used in the 15th century, and the top right-hand corner of each recto right-hand page has been numbered from 1 to 116 using a style of numerals that originated at a later date. Yeah, this thing has been annotated. From the various numbering gaps in the quires and pages, it seems likely that in the past, the manuscript had at least 272 pages in 20 quires, some of which were already missing when Wilfrid Voynich acquired the manuscript in 1912. There is strong evidence that many of the book's bifolios were reordered at various points in the book's history, and that its pages were originally in a different order than the order they are in today. Parchment, covers, and binding. It's bound in human skin, like the Necronomicon. It's not. But a lot of these illustrations look very Lovecraftian to me. And I wonder if H.P. Lovecraft knew about this. I mean, it was discovered in 1912. He was most active between like 1914 and 1924. So it's possible. But yeah, the illustrations look very Lovecraftian to me. Parchment, covers, and binding. Samples from various parts of the manuscript were radiocarbon dated at the University of Arizona in 2009. David is here. Greetings, David. Welcome. You're just in time, friend. How is your Wednesday going? I hope you're feeling better. Greetings to your lovely wife. And what's for dinner? The results were consistent for all samples tested and indicated a date for the parchment between 1404 and 1438. Protein testing in 2014 revealed that the parchment was made from calf skin, and multispectral analysis showed that it had not been written on before the manuscript was created, i.e. it is not a palimpsest. A palimpsest is a manuscript page either from a scroll or a book from which the text has been scraped or washed off in preparation for reuse in the form of another document. So it's not a forgery, is what they're basically saying. The quality of the parchment is average and has deficiencies such as holes and tears common in parchment codices, but was also prepared with so much care that the skin side is largely indistinguishable from the flesh side. The parchment is prepared from at least 14 or 15 entire calf skins, and it is bound in human flesh, David. It's not. Some folios, such as 42 and 47, are thicker than the usual parchment. The goat skin bindings and covers are not original to the book, but date to its first possession by the Collegio Romano. Insect holes are present in the first and last folios of the manuscript in the current order and suggest that a wooden cover was present before the later covers. Discoloring on the edges point to a tanned leather inside cover. David is in a lot of pain still. I'm sorry to hear that, friend. You just take it easy. Take it easy and get better. Moving on to the ink. Many pages contain substantial drawings or charts, which are colored with paint. Based on modern analysis using polarized light microscopy, it has been determined that a quill pen and an iron gall ink were used for the text and figure outlines. Iron gall ink is a purple-black or brown-black ink made from iron, salts, and tannic acids from vegetable sources. It was the standard ink formulation used in Europe for the 1400-year period between the 5th and 19th centuries, and remained in widespread use well into the 20th century. The ink of the drawings, text, and page inquiry numbers have similar microscopic characteristics. In 2009, energy dispersive X-ray spectroscopy revealed that the inks contained major amounts of carbon, iron, sulfur, potassium, and calcium with trace amounts of copper and occasionally zinc. EDS did not show the presence of lead, white, while X-ray diffraction identified potassium, lead oxide, potassium hydrogen sulfite, and cyanogenite in one of the samples tested. The similarity between the drawing inks and text inks suggest a contemporaneous origin. So it was all written and drawn at the same time by the same crazy person, madman or philosopher or time traveler. Paint. Colored paint was applied somewhat crudely to the ink outline figures, possibly at a later date. So it might have just looked like this, and someone colored it in later. The blue, white, red, brown, and green paints of the manuscript have been analyzed using PLM, XRD, EDS, and scanning electron microscopy. The blue paint proved to be a ground azurite with minor traces of the copper oxide cuprite. The white paint is a mixture of egg white and calcium carbonate. The green paint is tentatively characterized by copper and copper chlorine resonate. The crystalline material might be atacamite or some other copper chlorine compound, and analysis of the red-brown paint indicate a red ochre, with the crystal phases hematite and iron sulfite. Minor amounts of lead sulfite and palmerite are possibly present in the red-brown paint. The pigments were deemed inexpensive. David says, my wife wants to know what this book is. No one knows, Mrs. David. It is a mystery that has not been solved. It is written in a language that no one understands, and it describes plants and animals that do not exist or have not been discovered yet. And there's an astrology section that features stars that do not exist in our skies. It's a mystery. Welcome to Weirdling Wednesdays. Retouching. Computer scientist Jorge Stolfi of the University of Campinas. Where's Campinas? Is that Italy? Oh, it's in Brazil. It's in Sao Paulo, Brazil. highlighted that parts of the text and drawings have been modified using darker ink over a fainter, earlier script. Text. Every page in the manuscript contains text, mostly in an unidentified language. That's fascinating to me. They made up their own language, or it's it's an undiscovered language, a forgotten language, a dead language, an alien language. What's that about? But some have extraneous writing in Latin script. I assume it was annotated later on, at a later date. The bulk of the text in the 240-page manuscript is written in an unknown script running left to right. Most of the characters are composed of one or two simple pen strokes. There exists some dispute as to whether certain characters are distinct, but a script of 20 to 25 characters would account for virtually all of the text. The exception are a few dozen rarer characters that occur only once or twice each. There is no obvious punctuation. Much of the text is written in a single column in the body of a page, with a slightly ragged right margin and paragraph divisions, and sometimes with stars in the left margin. Other text occurs in charts or as labels associated with illustrations. The ductus, what is a ductus? Flows smoothly. The number of strokes that make up a written letter. Don't say you never learned anything on this live stream or on this channel. Giving the impression that these symbols were not enciphered. In cryptography, a cipher is an algorithm for performing encryption or decryption, a series of well-defined steps that can be followed as a procedure. An alternative, less common term is encipherment. To encipher or encode is to convert information into cipher or code. So it was just written freehand. And there is no delay between characters as would normally be expected in written encoded text. Yeah, so we're assuming it was he just wrote it out. It just poured from his brain in one single moment. Maybe. What would possess someone to write this and to keep it, and how did it maintain? I'm also interested in the provenance. How did it why was this kept? At some point, someone could understand it, you would assume, and now that's been lost. Moving on to the extraneous writing, only a few of the words in the manuscript are thought to have not been written in the unknown script. There's a sequence of Latin letters in the right margin parallel with characters from the unknown script, and the now unreadable signature of Jacopi a Tepeneci is found in the bottom margin. So Jacobi signed his name. There's a line of writing in the Latin script in the top margin. There's a small number of words in the bottom left corner near a drawing of a nude man that have been read as der Musetil, a High German phrase for a widow's share. The astrological series of diagrams in the astronomical section has the names of the 10 of the months from March to December written in Latin script, with spelling suggestive of the medieval languages of France, northwest Italy, or the Iberian Peninsula. Also, 4 lines written in rather distorted Latin script referred to as Mictonese, except for 2 words in the unknown script. The words in Latin appear to be distorted with characteristics of the unknown language. The lettering resembles European alphabets of the late 14th and 15th centuries, but the words do not seem to make sense in any known language. Whether these bits of Latin script were part of the original text or were added later is not known. It could be a hoax, a 600-year-old hoax. It could be a joke. a 600-year-old troll? We'll never know. It's a mystery. The transcription. Various transcription alphabets have been created to equate Voynich characters with Latin characters to help with cryptanalysis, such as the extensible, originally European Voynich alphabet, or EVA. The first major one was created by the first study group, led by cryptographer William F. Friedman in the 1940s, where each line of the manuscript was transcribed to an IBM punch card to make it machine readable. So they tried to run it through a computer in 1940. Statistical patterns. The text consists of over 170,000 characters, with spaces dividing the text into about 35,000 groups of varying lengths, usually referred to as words or word tokens. 8,000 of those words are considered unique word types. The structure of these words seem to follow phonological or orthographic laws of some sort. For example, certain characters must appear in each word, like English vowels. Some characters never follow others, or some may be doubled or tripled, but others may not. The distribution of letters within words is also rather peculiar. Some characters only occur at the beginning of a word, some only at the end, and some always in the middle section. So it seems like a language. Mama One is here. Everyone say hi to Mama One. Mama One, welcome to Weirdling Wednesdays, where we explore the weird, the mysterious, the forgotten, and the fun. I'm making that up. It's basically Sinister Sundays on Wednesdays. Papa One is also here. Greetings, Papa One. Welcome, friend. This is a 600-year-old manuscript in a language that has yet to be discovered, detailing plants that never existed. Many researchers have commented upon the highly regular structure of the words. Professor Gonzalo Rubio, an expert in ancient languages at Penn State, stated, "The things we know as grammatical markers, things that occur commonly at the beginning or end of words, such as S or D in our language, and that are used to express grammar, never appear in the middle of words in the Voynich manuscript. That is unheard of for any Indo-European, Hungarian, or Finnish language." Stefan von Felt studied statistical properties of the distribution of letters and their correlations, properties which can be vaguely characterized as rhythmic resonance, I like that, alliteration or assonance, and found that under that respect, Voynicese is more similar to the Mandarin Chinese pinyin texts of the records of the Grand Historian than to the text of works from European languages, although numerical differences between Voynicese and Mandarin Chinese pinyin look larger than those between Mandarin Chinese pinyin and European languages. Practically no words have fewer than 2 letters or more than 10. Some words occur only in certain sections or in only a few pages. Others occur throughout the manuscript. Few repetitions occur among the 1,000 or so labels attached to the illustrations. There are instances where the same common word appears up to 3 times in a row. Words that differ by only 1 letter also repeat with unusual frequency, causing single substitution alphabet decipherings to yield Babel-like text. In 1962, cryptanalyst Elizabeth Friedman described such statistical analysis as doomed to utter frustration. Yeah, smarter minds than you and I have analyzed the text and come up with nothing. In 2014, a team led by Diego Amancio of the University of Sao Paulo, Amancio, I would say, of the University of Sao Paulo, published a study using statistical methods to analyze the relationship of words in the text. Instead of trying to find meaning, Amancio's team looked for connections and clusters of words. By measuring the frequency and intermittence of words, Amancio claimed to identify the text's keywords and produced three-dimensional models of the text's structures and word frequencies. The team concluded that in 90% of the cases, the Voynich systems are similar to those of other known books, indicating that the text is an actual language, not random gibberish. And Sadie is asleep on my foot, and my foot is also asleep. What's that about? We'll bring her up so she can say hi to Mama One and David and Glynis. Hup, hup. There. Sadie is not interested in the Voynich manuscript because there are no pictures of dogs. Linguists Claire Bowen and Luke Linderman have applied statistical methods to the Voynich manuscript, comparing it to other languages and encodings of languages, and have found both similarities and differences in statistical properties. Character sequences in languages are measured using a metric called H2, or second-order conditional entropy. Natural languages tend to have an H2 between 3 and 4, but Voynichese has a much more predictable character sequence and an H2 around 2. However, at higher levels of organization, the Voynich manuscript displays properties similar to those of natural languages. Based on this, Bowen dismisses theories that the manuscript is gibberish. It is likely to be an encoded natural language or a constructed language. Bowen also concludes that the statistical properties of the Voynich manuscript are not consistent with the use of a substitution cipher or a polyalphabetic cipher. So it's not code, it's a language. Just a language we can't read. And I find that fascinating. As noted in Bowen's review, multiple scribes or hands may have written the manuscript, possibly using two methods of encoding of at least one natural language. The, quote, language Voynich A appears in the herbal and pharmaceutical parts of the manuscript. The language known as Voynich B appears in the how do you say that word? Balneological section. And balneotherapy is a method of treating diseases by bathing, a traditional technique usually practiced at spas. Since ancient times, humans have used hot springs, public baths, and thermal medicine for therapeutic effects. Some parts of the medicinal and herbal sections and the astrological section, the common vocabulary items in Voynich A and Voynich B are substantially different. Topic modeling of the manuscript suggests that pages identified as written by a particular scribe may relate to a different topic. In terms of morphology, if visual spaces in the manuscript are assumed to indicate word breaks, there are consistent patterns that suggest a three-part word structure or prefix, root, or midfix and suffix. Certain characteristics and character combinations are more likely to appear in particular fields. There are minor variations between Voynich A and Voynich B. The predictability of certain letters in a relatively small number of combinations in certain parts of words appear to explain the low entropy of Voynichese. In the absence of obvious punctuation, yeah, Mama 1 and Papa 1 and Mrs. David, there's no punctuation. It's just one continuous text. In the absence of obvious punctuation, some variants of the same word appear to be specific to typographical positions, such as the beginning of a paragraph, line, or sentence. So it's as if it was dictated by aliens, obviously. And it's bound in human skin. It's not. It is not. It is absolutely not. It's bound in goat. The Voynich word frequencies of both variants appear to conform to a Zipfilian distribution, supporting the idea that the text has linguistic meaning. This has implications for the encoding methods most likely to have been used, since some forms of encoding interfere with the Zipfilian distribution. Measures of the proportional frequency of the 10 most common words is similar to those of Semitic, Iranian, and Germanic languages. Another measure of morphological complexity, the moving average type token ratio index, is similar to Iranian, Germanic, and Romance language. Papa One says must have been written by some politician, an alien politician, Papa One, a leader from another planet. Illustrations. Because the text cannot be read, the manuscript is conventionally divided into sections based on illustrations. Most of the manuscript forms 6 different sections, each typified by illustrations with different styles and supposed subject matter, except for the last section, in which the only drawings are small stars in the margin. The conventional sections are herbal, 112 folios. Each page displays 1 or 2 plants and a few paragraphs of text, a format typical of European herbals of the time. Some parts of these drawings are larger and cleaner copies of sketches in the pharmaceutical section. None of the plants depicted are unambiguously identifiable. Yeah, nobody knows what these plants are because they're not from this planet. They are obviously from this planet, and this was written by a crazy person. It's not, I'm just putting in my opinion because to make it more interesting and because I want it to be. But just because I want something to be doesn't mean that it actually happens. There's a rational explanation for this, and my rational explanation is it's just a madman or a schizophrenic. But I want to believe it's aliens. Astronomical, 21 folios, contain circular diagrams suggestive of astronomy or astrology, some of them with suns, moons, and stars. One series of 12 diagrams depicts conventional symbols for these zodiacal constellations: 2 fish for Pisces, a bull for Taurus, a hunter with crossbow for Sagittarius, etc. Most of these has 30 female figures arranged in 2 or more concentric bands. Most of the females are at least partly nude. Wish O-Dog was here. Papa One says maybe the Chelonians wrote it. Yes, Papa One. That's an excellent theory. Most of the females are at least partly nude, and each holds what appears to be a labeled star or is shown with the star attached to either arm by what could be a tether or a cord of some kind. The last 2 pages of this section were lost: Aquarius and Capricornus, roughly February and January, while Aries and Taurus are split into 4 paired diagrams with 15 women and 15 stars each. Some of these diagrams are on fold-out pages. Balneological, that's the bath ones, 20 folios, a dense, continuous text interspersed with drawings, mostly showing small nude women, some wearing crowns, bathing in pools or tubs connected by an elaborate network of pipes. The bifolio consists of 78 verso and 81 recto, that's left and right. It forms an integrated design with water flowing from one folio to the other. Cosmological, 13 folios, more circular diagrams, but they're of an obscure nature. This section also has foldouts. One of them spans 6 pages, commonly called the Rosettes folio, and contains a map or diagram with 9 islands or rosettes connected by causeways and containing castles, as well as what might be a volcano. So obviously a map of where this came from, where this language came from, and I wish we could like time it with the with what's showing on screen now. Looks like we're still in the bath section. Pharmaceutical, 34 folios, many labeled drawings of isolated plant parts, roots, leaves, etc. Objects resembling apothecary jars, ranging in style from the mundane to the fantastical, and a few text paragraphs. And then finally we have recipes, 22 folios, full pages of text, broken into many short paragraphs, each marked with a star in the left margin. 5 folios contain only text, and at least 14 folios, 28 pages, are missing from the manuscript. So obviously the missing parts are the key to translating this into Latin and then into English. Purpose. The overall impression given by the surviving leaves of the manuscript is that it was meant to serve as a pharmacopoeia to address topics in medieval or modern or early modern medicine. However, the puzzling details of the illustration have fueled many theories about the book's origin, the contents of its text, and the purpose for which it was intended. It could also be a grimoire of some sort, and these could all be spells and herbal remedies. The first section of the book is almost certainly herbal, but attempts have failed to identify the plants, either with actual specimens or with the stylized drawings of contemporaneous herbals. Only a few of the plant drawings can be identified with a reasonable certainty, such as a wild pansy and the maidenhair fern. The herbal pictures that match pharmacological sketches appear to be clean copies, except that missing parts were completed with improbable details. In fact, many of the plant drawings in the herbal section seem to be a composite. The roots of one species have been fastened to the leaves of another, with flowers from a third. Astrological considerations frequently played a prominent role in herb gathering, bloodletting, and other medical procedures common during the likeliest dates of the manuscript. However, interpretation remains speculative apart from the obvious zodiac symbols and one diagram showing the classical planets. Okay, so the astronomy part is basically accurate. History. Much of the book's early provenance is unknown, though the text and illustrations are all characteristically European. In 2009, University of Arizona's researchers radiocarbon dated the manuscript's vellum to between 1404 and 1438. In addition, Macron Associates in Westmore, Illinois, found that the paints in the manuscript were of materials to be expected from that period of European history. There have been erroneous reports that the Macron Associates indicated that much of the ink was added not long after the creation of the parchment, but their official report contains no statement of this. A green tea break. Miko says, William from Red Dead Redemption 2 would have liked this manuscript. Yes, William would have, Miko. The first confirmed owner was Georg Berisch, a 17th century alchemist from Prague. Yeah, I knew an alchemist there's an alchemy connection to this book. Berisch was apparently puzzled about this sphinx, he called it, that had been taking up space uselessly in his library for many years. So he didn't know what it was either. He learned that Jesuit scholar Athanasius Kirchner from Collegio Romano had published a Coptic or Egyptian dictionary and claimed to have deciphered the Egyptian hieroglyphs. Berisch twice sent a sample copy of the script to Kirchner in Rome, asking for clues. The 1639 letter from Berisch to Kirchner is the earliest known mention of the manuscript to have been confirmed. Do we have a copy? Whether Kirchner answered the request is not known, but he was apparently interested enough to try to acquire the book, which Berisch refused to yield. Upon Berisch's death, the manuscript passed to his friend Jan Marek Marci, also known as Johannes Marcus Marci, the rector of Charles University in Prague. A few years later, Marci sent the book to Kirchner, his longtime friend and correspondent. Marci also sent Kirchner a cover letter in Latin dated 19th August 1665 that was still attached to the book when Voynich acquired it. The book, Do we have time to read the letter? I think we do. Reverend and distinguished Sir, Father in Christ, this book, bequeathed to me by an intimate friend, I destined for you, my very dear Athanasius, as soon as it came into my possession, for I was convinced that it could be read by no one except yourself. The former owner of this book asked your opinion by letter, copying and sending you a portion of the book from which he believed you would be able to read the remainder, but he at that time refused to send the book itself. To its deciphering he devoted unflagging toil, as is apparent from his attempts, which I send you herewith, and he relinquished hope only with his life. But his toil was in vain, for such sphinxes as these obey no one but their master, Kircher. Accept now this token, such as it is, and long overdue though it be, of my affection for you, and burst through its bars, if there are any, with your wonted success. Dr. Raphael, a tutor in the Bohemian language to Ferdinand III, then King of Bohemia, told me that the said book belonged to the Emperor Rudolph, and that he presented it to the bearer, who brought him the book for 600 ducats. He believed the author was Roger Bacon, the Englishman. On this point, I suspend judgment. It is your place to define for us what view we should take thereon, to whose favor and kindness I unreservedly commit myself, and remain at the command of your reverence, Johannes Marcus Marcy of Kronland, Prague, 19th August, 1665. Wow, they really knew how to write back then. The Dr. Raphael is believed to be Raphael Sobiherd Minishovsky, and the sum of 600 ducats is 2.10 kilograms of actual gold weight. The only matching transaction in Rudolph's records is the 1599 purchase of a couple remarkable rare books from Karl Wiedemann for the sum of 600 florins. Wiedemann was a prolific collector of esoteric and alchemical manuscripts, so his ownership of the manuscript is plausible but unproven. While Wilfrid Voynich took Raphael's claim at face value, actually it would be Voynich. W's are V's and V's are F's, so it should be the Voynich manuscript. What's that about? While Wilfrid Voynich took Raphael's claim at face value, the Bacon authorship theory has been largely discredited. However, a piece of evidence supporting Rudolph's ownership is the now almost invisible name or signature on the first page of the book of Jacobus Horzycki de Tepenec, the head of Rudolph's botanical gardens in Prague. Rudolph died still owing money to de Tepenec, and it is possible that de Tepenec may have been given the book or simply taken it in partial payment of that debt. And Sadie is snoring. Can you hear her? We put her to sleep. She's bored with the Voynich manuscript and the mystery surrounding it. No records of the book for the next 200 years have been found, but in all likelihood it was stored with the rest of Kircher's correspondence in the library of the Collegio Romano, now the Pontifical Gregorian University. Where is that, Rome? Yeah, it's in Rome. So the Vatican had it. It probably remained there until the troops of Victor Emmanuel II of Italy captured the city in 1870 and annexed the Papal States. The new Italian government decided to confiscate many properties of the church, including the library of the Collegio. Many books of the university's library were hastily transferred to personal libraries of its faculty. Shortly before this happened, according to investigations by Javier Cecaladi and others, and those books were exempt from confiscation. Kircher's correspondence was among those books, and so, apparently, was the Voynich manuscript, as it still bears the ex libris of Petrus Bex, head of the Jesuit order and the university's rector at the time. Beck's private library was moved to the Via Mondragone Frascati, a large country palace near Rome, and that had been bought by the Society of Jesus in 1866, and housed the headquarters of the Jesuits' Gisleri College. In 1903, the Society of Jesus was short of money and decided to sell some of its holdings discreetly to the Vatican Library. The sale took place in 1912, but not all the manuscripts listed for sale ended up going to the Vatican. Wilfrid Voynich acquired 30 of these manuscripts, among them the one which now bears his name. He spent the next 7 years attempting to interest scholars in deciphering the script, while he worked to determine the origins of the manuscript. Weirdling Wednesdays is thirsty work. What's that about? In 1930, the manuscript was inherited after Wilfrid's death by his widow Ethel Voynich, author of The Gadfly and daughter of the mathematician George Boole. You heard of Boolean? That's George Boole. She died in 1960 and left the manuscript to her close friend Annie Nill. In 1961, Nill sold the book to antique book dealer Hans P. Krauss. Krauss was unable to find a buyer and donated the manuscript to Yale University in 1969, where it was cataloged as MS-408, sometimes also referred to as Benneke MS-408. Timeline of ownership. The timeline of ownership of the Voynich manuscript is given below. The time when it was possibly created is shown in green. Authorship hypothesis. Many people have been proposed as possible authors of the Voynich manuscript, among them Roger Bacon, John Dee. Have you heard of John Dee? He wrote the Malus Maleficarium, or the Witch's Hammer. Edward Kelly and Giovanni Fontana, and also Voynich. Early history. Marcy's 1665 cover letter to Kircher says that, according to his friend the late Raphael Miniszewski, the book had once been bought by Rudolph II, Holy Roman Emperor and King of Bohemia, for 600 ducats. We knew that. Moving on. We've covered that. The assumption that Bacon was the author led Voynich to conclude that John Dee sold the manuscript to Rudolph. Dee was a mathematician and astrologer at the court of Queen Elizabeth I of England and was known to have owned a large collection of Bacon's manuscript. Dee and his scryer, or spirit medium, Edward Kelly, lived in Bohemia for several years, where they had hoped to sell their services to the emperor. However, this sale seems unlikely, according to John Schuster, because Dee's meticulously kept diaries do not mention it. If Bacon did not create the Voynich manuscript, a supposed connection to Dee is much weakened. It was thought possible prior to the carbon dating of the manuscript that Dee or Kelly might have written it and spread the rumor that it was originally a work of Bacon's in the hope of later selling it. Fabrication by Voynich. This is the theory that it's a forgery. Some suspect Voynich of having fabricated the manuscript himself. As an antique book dealer, he probably had the necessary knowledge and means, and a lost book by Roger Bacon would have been worth a fortune. Furthermore, Barish's letter and Marcy's letter only established the existence of a manuscript, not that the Voynich manuscript is the same one mentioned. These letters could possibly have been the motivation for Voynich to fabricate the manuscript, assuming that he was aware of them. However, many consider the expert internal dating of the manuscript and the June 1999 discovery of Barish's letter to Kircher as having eliminated this possibility. Eamon Duffy says the radiocarbon dating of the parchment, or more accurately, vellum, effectively rules out possibility that the manuscript is a post-medieval forgery, and as the consistency of the pages indicates origin from a single source, and it is, quote, inconceivable that a quantity of unused parchment comprising of at least 14 or 15 entire calfskins could have survived from the early 15th century. Well, unless you don't discount time travel, someone could have time traveled back to the 16th century and stolen 14 or 15 entire calfskins and then brought them back. Actually, no, strike that. If you brought them back, they would still look like modern calfskins because they wouldn't age. You would have to hide them in a wall or someplace, or in a bank vault, in a safety deposit box for 600 years so that they would age appropriately. Constructed language. The peculiar internal structure of Voynich manuscript words led William F. Friedman to conjecture that the text could be a constructed language. In 1950, Friedman asked the British Army officer John Tiltman to analyze a few pages of the text. Tiltman did not share this conclusion. In a paper in 1967, Brigadier Tiltman said, "After reading my report, Mr. Friedman disclosed to me his belief that the basis of the script was a very primitive form of synthetic universal language, such as was developed in the form of a philosophical classification of ideas by Bishop Wilkins in 1667. In 1667 and Dalgano a little later, it was clear that the productions of these two men were much too systematic, and anything of the kind would have been almost instantly recognizable. My analysis seemed to me to reveal a cumbersome mixture of different kinds of substitution. So I thought it was a substitution text, or crypt, so basically a code. And then for a hoax, the fact that the manuscript has defied decipherment thus far has led various scholars to propose that the text does not contain meaningful content in the first place, implying that it may be a medieval hoax. Let's see. In 2003, computer scientist Gordon Rugg showed that text with characteristics similar to the Voynich manuscript could have been produced using a table of word prefixes, stems, and suffixes, which would have been selected and combined by means of a perforated paper overlay. The latter device, known as a Cardan grill, was invented around 1550 as an encryption tool, more than 100 years after the estimated creation date of the Voynich manuscript. In April 2007, a study by Austrian researcher Andreas Schinner, published in Cryptologia, supported the hoax hypothesis. Schinner posited that the statistical properties of the manuscript's text were more consistent with meaningless gibberish produced using a quasi-stochastic method, such as the one described by Rugg, than with Latin and medieval German texts. However, other scholars have argued that sophisticated patterns could also appear in hoaxed documents. Glossolia. That's speaking in tongues. In their 2004 book, Jerry Kennedy and Rob Churchill suggest the possibility that the Voynich manuscript may be a case of glossolia, speaking in tongues, channeling, or outsider art. Yeah, outsider art. Have you heard of that? Outsider art is art made by self-taught individuals who are untrained and untutored in the traditional arts with typically little or no contact with the conventions of the art worlds. It's also like folk art. So yeah, channeling or speaking in tongues, crazy person. If so, the author felt compelled to write large amounts of text in a manner which resembles stream of consciousness, either because of the voices he heard or because of an urge. This often takes place in an invented language, usually made up of fragments of the author's own language, although invented scripts for this purpose are rare. The theory is controversial and virtually impossible to prove or disprove, short of deciphering the text. Churchill acknowledges the possibility that the manuscript is either a synthetic, foreign, forgotten language, or else a forgery as the preeminent theory. However, he concludes that if the manuscript is a genuine creation, mental illness or delusion seems to have affected the author. So, aliens or crazy, or time travel, that is that are the proponent theories. What are you people talking about? It seems like you're talking about corporal punishment and cursive and Pop one's talking about Vietnam. That's okay. How is everyone? How's everyone tonight? That is the Voynich manuscript for you. That's a lot of writing. What's that about? I mean, reading. How's everyone? Mama One, what did you have for dinner? I'm hungry. David, what was for dinner? I'm sure you said earlier. How's everyone? How's your week going? Glennis, I'm glad you saw that video. I took it down because it got a lamentable 21 views in 6 hours. What's that about? So, if like people don't want to watch, if people don't want gaming news videos from the channel, I'm not going to push it. But it had a wonderful, I was very proud of the thumbnail and the format. It seemed to be working out. I had high hopes for it. I'm not going to lie. But it didn't work. So let's try something new. Sinister Sundays seems to be working. 9 viewers in the chat. So we'll keep that going for a while. So what did you all think of the Voynich manuscript? Gwyneth said, chili dogs and tater tots. I love tater tots. And I do love chili dogs, too. What did I have? I had the rest of the pad thai and a Pop-Tart. Cloudy says, howdy, y'all. I'm so late. You're just in time, Cloudy. We were talking about the Voynich manuscript all night long, it seemed. What's that about? Let's see, what else? Free Roam Fridays returns, of course. I don't know who we're doing the Saturday Horse Show. Maybe the Reverse Dapple Thoroughbred. We haven't done that one. And I know Mama One likes that horse. Sunday, Sinister Sundays. Haven't figured it out yet. I'm glad I have a day off. Mom One says, we had homemade chicken pot pie. I love chicken pot pie. I don't think I've ever had homemade. I know I've never had homemade. With fresh peas, carrots, squash, corn, I made the homemade bread. I made homemade bread plus a slice of peach pie. You always have perfect dinners, Mama One. It's amazing to me. David says, interesting. My wife studies stuff like that. She said she's seen this before. I believe it. It's very, I learned about it just from, I'm interested in this kind of stuff. Papa One says, we were talking about corporal punishment. Do you feel it was affected over the timeout generation? Oh, that's a tough one. Yes, in many cases, but in I would say in 80% of the cases, yes. But there's a 20%, there's like a 15 to 20% where it's like hugely traumatizing. Um, I think, but you know, like we did it for centuries, you know, and we didn't produce like, you know, um, so yeah, I think I think to an extent. I mean, you can't like go crazy, obviously, but what you know, Sadie was abused before my auntie got a hold of her. Um, so like her first 4 months of life, she was she was maltreated, she was mistreated, and every now and then it comes out. I mean, she'll have nightmares. One time I yelled at her because she bit me really hard, and so I was just trying to get her to associate um, not biting people because that's super dangerous. And I yelled at her, and her lower like her eyes welled up with tears, and her lower lip quivered, and she really looked like she was about to cry, and she cowered like I was going to hit her. You know, it's like, oh, I'm not going to do any of those things. So she was having like a horrible memory of how she was treated in the past. So I had to sit down on the floor with her and promise her that she's not in trouble and that I would never hurt her. Um, so that's the only like my only like experience with corporal punishment. You know, my parents did timeouts and timeouts and go to your room, and I didn't mind going to my room because that's where all my stuff was, and you know, withholding allowance and stuff like that. And I basically went wild in my teens, so it didn't really work for me. Um, At any rate, friends, that's about all I have for you tonight. I appreciate all of you being here. Thank you for listening. We ramble on about the Voynich manuscript. Shout out to the mods, David, Papa One, Mama One. Thank you so much for being here. Channel member Glynis Coleman. Thank you. Miko, if you're still here, shout out to Miko. Enjoy the rest of your week. See you on Friday. My love to you all.